right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to our candidate orientation. Thank you for coming, carving time out of your day today. So as I mentioned to a few of you, tonight's really sort of staff-driven, I'll say. So it's not about the candidates coming up and talking about their platforms or anything like that. It's us just kind of sharing about the city, a variety of topics. And so I'm going to do introductions of our team that's here. So I'm Christina Turner, and I am the city manager for Morgan Hill. And many of you probably know Michelle Bigelow. She is our city clerk and our public information officer. Our candidates primarily interface with her. And then over here we have Edith Ramirez, our assistant city manager for development services. And then in the back over there, Chris Gioni, public services director. And then behind him we have Chief Palsgrove with our police department. And then I would be remiss if I didn't introduce the former city manager, two removed from me, Ed Tweez. There he is. And then I thought we would also introduce the candidates that are here. We have Mark Turner, one of our mayoral candidates. And then to his right over here, we have Brian Sutherland, and he is in District B. All right, Marilyn, good evening. And this is Marilyn Levers for District D. So I'm going to go through a PowerPoint. Some of the slides we're going to go through fairly quickly. Happy to answer questions as we go along. Also happy to answer questions at the end of the presentation or afterwards. I'm easy to reach. You can grab a business card from me or just look me up on the website. Many of you already have my contact information. And then my team here is also available during this presentation if there's something that you want to go into more detail about. You know, we're going to have a couple slides on some of our development projects so we can talk about those as well. And students, it's so great to see you in here. Thank you for being here. This is sort of different than your regular council meeting. It's a candidate forum, candidate orientation, where we're going to just kind of go through different things that might be of interest to the candidates. So without further ado, I'm going to put up our first slide here. And this first slide kind of lays out California by the different governing agencies. And so it starts off with the state of California, and within California we have 58 counties. And within that we have 482 incorporated cities. And from there we break out the cities' charter versus general law. And so charter cities are cities that have a charter, and so that's the authority over their muni affairs. And so the cities to our north and our south are charter cities, so both San Jose and Gilroy. And then Morgan Hill falls into the next bucket, which is general law cities, and so basically we're bound by the state's general law. So a little bit about Morgan Hill. So we were incorporated in 1906. Our population is about 45,000. That was updated with our most recent census. It did decrease from the estimates that had been put out each year. We cover about 13 square miles, 138.9 miles of roads, 29 parks, and hopefully you've seen many, if not all, of our parks. It's always fun. I had visitors here over the weekend just taking them through the city, and they're just amazed when they see some of our parks, like our railroad park in downtown, and of course our new magical bridge that's part of Community Park. It's just amazing that we have so much space, and it's really just well designed. And then we also are fortunate to have 4 recreation centers. And then as far as employees go, we refer to them as full-time equivalents, 203.75, and we'll see a chart here in a moment. And then part-time teammates vary by season, but we have upwards of 200, and a lot of those are in the recreation area. And then Morgan Hill is considered a full-service city. So what does that mean? Well, we have police, and we have fire. Fire we contract out with CAL FIRE. We have water and wastewater. Sewer is another name for wastewater. Streets, parks, recreation, housing, economic development, and development services. So not all cities have all of these. So this morning, as a matter of fact, I had a phone call from somebody from the city of Los Gatos. They don't have utility billing, so they don't have finance staff that are in charge of utility billing, and they're not in charge of their systems from an operations perspective. Similarly, some cities contract out their police agency to the sheriff's department, for instance, and the revenue doesn't come to the city, but rather goes to that agency. This This next slide kind of makes a comparison between the private and the public sector, because many come, knowing more about the private sector than the public sector. So at the top, shareholders or stockholders. In our world, it's synonymous or close to residents. Board of directors for a private sector. For us, it's the city council. The chief executive officer is similar to city manager, and then corporate counsel, similar to our city attorney. So let's just overview the council seats. So the mayor here serves a 2-year term, whereas the council members each serve 4-year terms. So basically every 2 years we have 3 seats that are up for election. And this of course does vary from city to city. And we do now have district elections, and so 2018 was the first year where we had elections that were by district. Council meetings are typically held the 1st, the 3rd, and sometimes the 4th Wednesdays of each month. Sometimes it varies from there where we have special meetings, but that's generally the case. And then, there are either special meetings or workshops. And then in addition to just regular city council meetings, our council members are appointed to outside agencies. And so that's a process that's done every year. The mayor makes appointments to these committees based upon requests from the council, everything from Valley Transportation Authority to South County Regional Wastewater Authority, which is our wastewater treatment plant. And so they serve on these boards. So for instance, for South County Regional Wastewater Authority, which is our wastewater treatment plant, there's 2 representatives from Morgan Hill, 2 council members, and then 3 from the city of Gilroy, just based on the ownership structure. And so the council members attend those meetings, and so they serve on behalf of our residents here and have a voice for Morgan Hill. So what are the roles of city council? Well, they're elected by the citizens of Morgan Hill. And as the mayor and council will say, one of their most important duties is hiring and providing direction to the city manager, myself, as well as to the city attorney. So those are the 2 positions that report directly into the council. They basically serve as the policy-making legislative body, and they establish the priorities and goals for the city. And so we'll look at the Sustainable Morgan Hill document, which is the document that lays out the goals. And we just had a mid-year goal-setting workshop last night. The council is responsible for adopting the budget. We have a 2-year budget here in Morgan Hill, and so we adopted our 2-year budget in June of this year. The council enacts ordinances and approves major contracts. They serve on council committees and appointments, as I mentioned, and then we also have city commissions, and so the council members appoint volunteers from the community to serve on those commissions. So the commissions are Library, Cultural, and Arts Commission. You'll hear that referred to as LCAC. And then Parks and Recreation Commission, as well as Planning Commission. Chris Gioni, who's here, he oversees and facilitates the first 2. And then Planning Commission, we have Jennifer Carmen. We have an elected city treasurer, and so this slide kind of lays out what the city treasurer does, provides independent oversight, works closely with our team on funds, also reviews our monthly investment reports, and then provides periodic review and recommends updates to our city's investment policy. What is the role of the city manager? Well, serves as the city's chief executive officer, responsible with our team for recommending and implementing council policy, providing leadership and direction for the city's day-to-day operations, preparing and administering the budget, overseeing all city personnel except for the city attorney's office, and then serving as the personnel officer, the purchasing agent, director of emergency services, and then the director of the successor agency to the redevelopment agency. And then city attorney, so our city attorney is Don Larkin. So we have an individual that's an employee of the city serving in the capacity of city attorney. Some cities have this contracted out. Gilroy has that model, so they contract out with Berlin or Cohen, but in our case, it's Don Larkin. He's responsible for the administration of all legal affairs for the city. He represents the city in litigation, administrative hearings, and other legal matters. He prepares and reviews all ordinances and resolutions, provides legal advice and opinions to each of the city's boards and the teammates, and then also he reviews and assesses claims for damage and insurance, and then we contract out for special matters with outside counsel as needed. I mentioned our goals document. So this is Sustainable Morgan Hill, and so this is the document that lays out council's vision. So I'll just go ahead and read that. And council's vision is to sustain a safe, inclusive, socially responsible, environmentally conscious, and an economically sound community. And at the top, you can see the graphic representation of that. And then a few years ago, we added the Choose Morgan Hill statement. We want Morgan Hill to be the best community for people to live, work, visit, and operate their businesses. And then the second part of Sustainable Morgan Hill goes into our ongoing priorities that the council has adopted, as well as our strategic priorities. The ongoing priorities typically don't change a whole lot from year to year. Now, council does look at these, and as a matter of fact, in January of this year, they decided on that third bullet to add the words and enhancing. So before it just said maintaining infrastructure, and the council wanted to make it clear that we don't want to just maintain the infrastructure that we have, but we want to better it and improve it, and so they added that enhancing. And the council has also adopted 5 strategic priorities. And so the strategic priorities are the areas that we as staff have a work plan, specific activities in furtherance of each of these different strategic priorities. You can see fiscal sustainability is number 1 there. That's in green. Affordable housing and homelessness, community outreach, engagement and messaging, economic development, and transportation. So last night, we went through this document with the council. Council validated this, didn't make any changes, and then we went through the work plan, the steps that I mentioned that staff has for the next couple of years, and council looked at that and discussed that as well. A little hard to see, but I'll kind of walk through this org chart. So as mentioned, at the very top of the org chart is the citizens of Morgan Hill. So basically, the council is accountable to the citizens of Morgan Hill and is elected by them. The city attorney and the city manager are the 2 direct appointments that the council has. And then in addition to that, we have an elected treasurer. Our city clerk position used to be an elected position, but that went to the ballot a few years ago, and then Michelle became an appointed position. So underneath city attorney, we have risk management as well as legal, and then for under city manager, we have administrative services, public services, development services, police, and then fire. This next chart goes into our employees, and so you can kind of see over time the change in the number of employees, and you can see in some years we have a dip, went down to 189.75, and over the last several years we've been able to build that back up to the 203. And then now we have a couple slides on our core values, and so you can see these are word clouds, and these were developed several years ago, and they were developed by teammates in defining each of our core values. And so you can see this one is teamwork, and you know, one of the great things about Morgan Hill is the concept that it's not, we don't call, you know, our fellow employees staff or employees, but teammates, and we really show that in our day-to-day work and how well we work together and the culture that we have here in Morgan Hill. And you know, we have found, of course, that through teamwork you can get a lot more done. You bring people together, a lot better ideas, and so forth. Customer service, this is very, very significant, and this is for all areas of the city. We want to make sure that people come, whether they're coming to City Hall, whether they're going to police, even if they're getting arrested. We need to make sure that we're showing people what a great place Morgan Hill is, that we're respectful, that we're helpful. Even if the answer might be no, there's a nice way to get to the answer no, and is there a way to get to yes? And so we want to make sure that we're delivering good customer service to the community. And then professional growth. So this is all about us as teammates, making sure that we stay fresh in our skills. We have opportunities to grow, to empower our teammates to do this, super important. And then meeting challenges. We don't meet challenges, we make opportunities, finding solutions and getting things done. I think, you know, if you've talked to people about the employees here, super creative, innovative, you know, whether it's bringing new ideas to the table, figuring out how to do things in a more efficient manner, meeting challenges. And then the innovation really goes hand in hand with that, so being open-minded, developing creative solutions, unique and creative ideas. Okay, so kind of changing gears now to talk about partnerships. So this is something that has been important in the financial success of Morgan Hill, is engaging in partnerships. And so we lay out just a few of them that are here. And so starting with the city of Gilroy. So I mentioned South County Regional Wastewater Authority, so that's a joint partnership. We have a joint powers agreement with the city of Gilroy to take care of wastewater services. Back in the economic downturn in 2008, Gilroy laid off several individuals, and part of that was the elimination of environmental services. And so to this day, City of Morgan Hill teammates perform environmental services work for the City of Gilroy. And so there are a lot of economies of scale in partnering like that. In addition to that, our police train together in some areas. Looking to the left at CAL FIRE, so we contract out our fire services to CAL FIRE. Huge economies of scale having CAL FIRE. Very, very successful partnership. Our chief, his name is Chief George Huang. He's part of our leadership team. He comes to our meetings. He's part of us. He has dual reporting lines, of course. But especially during the wildfire season, back when we did evacuations and so forth, the expertise of CAL FIRE was just shown so much in partnership with police as well. And then Centennial Recreation Center. So our recreation programs, we work with the YMCA, and that partnership has been great. Ethics policy. So this is something that we have each of our teammates, as well as the commissions, as well as city council sign. Bottom line on the ethics policy, what's important is honesty, respect, responsibility, fairness, and loyalty. Ethics is very, very important, very significant at all the different levels that I talked about, whether it's employees, whether it's the council, whether it's the commissions. And so by having everyone sign that is really just this physical, tangible showing that we support the ethics policy. Okay, I'm going to just pause there for a minute before I jump into some of the candidate information about the Brown Act and campaigns and so forth. Any questions? Anything that you want us to elaborate on? No? All right, we're going to roll. So I'm just going to touch on some of these areas, and if you have follow-up questions, let me know. Some of these areas I may ask you to talk to our city attorney about. But Brown Act. So Brown Act really governs how we do meetings and how governments are to be transparent, that we can't have our city council go in a back room over there and have private meetings. The work of the city has to be done in an open fashion. So there are, of course, reasons where the council would go in the back room, and it's called a closed session, but the law narrowly defines what can trigger that. Things like real estate deals, things like my employee evaluation, those things can be done behind closed doors, but the rest has to be open. And of course, we've been over Zoom, as I point to the dais over here, and Doug brought that up on his way in. We are still in Zoom, yes. Do we hope that we're going to be in person soon? Yes, absolutely. Our council decided to follow the Santa Clara County, and they have not yet returned to in-person meetings. So a couple of the different things, you know, Chris and his team have made sure that we've updated the system here, the filtration system. You know, one of the concerns is the spacing on the dais. Yes, there's meetings in here. We knew that there wouldn't be a whole lot of people tonight, but on certain council meeting nights, you know, this room gets packed. I also wanted to just mention, we have seen great public involvement and engagement over Zoom. And back to wildfires, working with our city clerk over here, we did these town halls, and it was pretty interesting to see. We had to continually increase our Zoom capability number of attendees. Michelle, originally, I think we started with 100, and then we went to probably like 300, and then Michelle saw it was approaching 300, and then she real time had to increase it. We went all the way over 1,000 participants. And so we have done town halls since COVID, and people that normally wouldn't come out have participated and have wanted to get information directly from the city. So back to in-person meetings. Hopefully over the next couple months we'll see the county going back in person. All right, Public Records Act. So just want to touch on that. Members of the public can put in Public Records Act requests, PRAs, and just about different information. So that could affect, council members, future council members. So there's rules about, using city email if you're doing city business, that sort of thing, because those records, can be asked for. Conflicts of interest, I'm not going to go into any detail. I think that there is information in the binders that Michelle had previously sent out, but council members and candidates need to be aware of potential conflicts of interest in your role, and there might be a time where council members have to step down and recuse themselves from certain matters. Yes, please.
The city attorney is not here tonight, but he did ask me to mention all candidates or elected officials serve both as legislators, but as quasi-judicial bodies. And as you go through your campaign process, it's important to keep in mind it's absolutely okay to have certain platforms that you will campaign on, perhaps slow growth, no growth, water conservation, etc. Be cautious of very specific projects and or issues. If those come before the council in a quasi-judicial fashion, you may need to recuse yourself from that conversation. You can reach out to me and I can put you in touch with the city attorney if you have concerns about that or questions. You can reach out to him yourself. The email is on our website, but I know you all have mine, so that just might be simpler. So just as you go through your campaign, be conscious of those platforms that you're running on.
Thank you, Michelle.
Can the city attorney provide actual documentation that backs up his interpretation? Because people are all public, they're residents, they're not members of the government. Yeah, private citizens, thank you. So I really have trouble with this idea that as a private citizen, I can't talk about something because maybe in the future I might be an elected official making a judgment on it. I'd really like to see something backing up Don's claim about this. I raised it when you had your candidate. Oh, and it disturbs me.
Yeah, I can pull that. I can reach out to him and we can get that and send it to you and the candidates. I also want to clarify too that, my understanding of Don's instruction is not that you can't have a conversation about it, but you just need to be thoughtful about if you're going to talk about a specific project and very vocally speak one way or another about it, then you are impacting the vote. And when you come before council, that can have some ramifications. And so I don't think it's that, Mark, for example, couldn't talk about Butterfield 5 as a project with you or anyone else. It's how he goes about that. And so I'll absolutely have Don provide some case law. And like I said, as candidates, if Doug, you as well, but if anybody has questions about that, you're welcome to reach out to him and get some more information.
Okay. Campaigns. So a couple things, signs, and so I believe your original binder that you have has information about that, and then in addition, the pamphlet that Michelle handed out tonight also has information, talks about what's allowed, what's not allowed, so please take a look at that. And then there's also just information generally speaking about political activity. Okay, so some of the resources that are out there, one is the Institute for Local Government, ILG, puts out information about ethics, and then there's a body called League of California Cities. Maryland's very familiar with that, having served on different bodies as it relates to that, now called Cal Cities. I think that's sort of not their legal name, but basically it's a body that advocates on behalf of cities, and the goal is really preserving local control, and so they put out information for candidates. And then we have included in your packet policies and procedures, and then there's also the California Fair Political Practices Commission, and so there's a website there that you can check out for more information. So this next slide is different ways to engage with the city. So first, if you're not already connected in getting weekly emails, I definitely can encourage you more to get on our 411 list. And then you can also go in and sign up for other sort of notifications. And so there's a variety of notifications that you can receive. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we have our website, and also, of course, through just regular mail. All right, budget. We're going to talk a little bit about budget. This is just the cover of our recently adopted operating and capital budget. As I mentioned, the council adopts a 2-year budget, and then as part of that, the council adopts a 6-year capital improvement program budget, so that at all times we have 5 years of capital budget that's been approved by the council. So just want to spend a little bit of time on budget. If it's something that you want to dig more into, don't hesitate to reach out. There's not just one fund that the city has and all the funds go into it, but rather there's several funds. And so this first slide is about the general fund. And so a lot of times when you hear information about city finances, it's typically the general fund, because the general fund there's the most discretion on how the funds can be spent. And so things like public safety, recreation, streets, economic development, those areas are funded through the general fund. On the revenue side, how the money comes in, most of the revenue is related to taxes, so property tax, sales tax, and transient occupancy tax. Now, in addition to the general fund, there's other fund types and several funds under each of these, but these are primarily non-discretionary, which means that the council doesn't have the discretion to use the funds in any manner that they desire. So development services fund, so that's for planning and building and engineering. Special revenue funds for housing, capital project funds for infrastructure, and then lastly there, enterprise funds, so provide for water and wastewater utilities. So for instance, if we get a grant and the grant is specific to a project, council can't decide to repurpose those funds and spend it on, say, additional police officers or some other sort of project. So just high-level summary of our budget. So we break out our operating and our capital budget, and it's by fiscal year. Our fiscal year runs from July 1st to June 30th. And so the year that we are in right now is that first column, fiscal year 2022 to 23, and this is in millions. And then we have a couple charts that I just want to quickly walk through. This breaks out our general fund revenue by category. Oops. Going the wrong way here. So 50.5 million in the first year, and so the lime green at the bottom there is property tax, so that's our largest portion of our revenue is from property tax, and then we have sales tax. I mentioned transient occupancy tax, another name for that is hotel tax. No, so separately we'll share the PowerPoint.
Yes, so the PowerPoint, along with a digital copy of this, will be posted on our website and emailed to all the candidates. Thank you.
All right, so just going into a little bit more depth about property tax, and so for fiscal year 23, 17.4 million, somewhat of an increase in the following year. And then this chart just really is a graphical illustration that the city of Morgan Hill does not receive all of the property tax revenue that people pay each year through the assessor, but basically we get 10%. So high level property tax is 1%, well we get 10% of that 1%. And then sales tax, 12.5 million this year, and so this breaks out, you can see the penny. So our tax rate right now is 9.125, and then we receive 1%. You could see most of the sales tax goes to the state. Other cities, you may notice, have a higher sales tax, so they have an add-on sales tax, like Campbell, I believe, in San Jose. Our voters have not, in the past, voted to increase our sales tax, and so we're at 9.125. And this next chart shows our per capita discretionary tax revenue comparison. So we are at the very left side of this, meaning that we have the lowest per capita in our county. We don't have that add-on sales tax. We don't have some of the other taxes that other cities have, but I would say in the very next statement, we've been able to do a lot with what we do have. And there's just some footnotes there about how funding is accounted for as it relates to fire. So we have gone out to the voters, but in the past, there hasn't been the will or the desire to increase our taxes in Morgan Hill. So transitioning to a kind of a hot topic, which is pensions. And so this chart here shows the percentage that's paid based on salaries. And so this shows the employee contribution as well as what the employees are covering of the employer or the City of Morgan Hills portion. Last night, DAT, our finance director, gave a presentation on kind of where we're at. Our PERS liability, so the assets being lower than the liabilities. So our liabilities have gone down because CalPERS has done well, but there's a lag, and as you're kind of seeing, interest rates have kind of dropped. But last night he did show slides showing that our liability has decreased. So we just wanted to share a little bit about that. And then this is a chart that we typically share when we're going through the budget with the council. And this shows our general fund reserve. So think of it kind of like money in the bank. So we base our general fund reserve and the percentages here based on our revenue. So kind of to walk through the detail of this, the red line, the horizontal line that's red, so 15% of our revenue. So that is the fund balance minimum level that council has set up. And then above that, the orange/yellow line is the goal of 25% of revenues. And then you can see there's two additional lines, the blue and the green. So the blue was based on when we adopted our budget. And so you can see that we, in the outer years, do dip below the 25% level, but we do stay above the 15% level. Now, the green line shows that there has been it's better. So our reserves are better because we ended the past fiscal year better than we anticipated. And so we received more revenue, and then we spent less. So through conservative spending, we were able to increase our reserves. And so what this shows is that we have been able to have a savings, if you will, have a reserve because we are above that 25% line, but you can see over time that the reserve is slowly going down, dipping below that line. And so it does show that in the future we will need to enhance the revenues that we have, to keep up with inflation, to keep up with rising costs, and then just as our city grows bigger, population-wise. Kind of switching to the capital side of the budget. This is just a high-level slide on the capital budget. So if we look at the 6 years, it's about $224 million. And so this goes into the different areas: parks and recreation, public facilities, storm drainage, streets and roads, wastewater, and water. Highly encourage you to dig into the budget document. So if you're interested in any of these areas, the capital budget goes through the categories, and then there are pages for each of the different capital projects for the next several years. So a lot of good information is included in our budget document. So the next several slides are project update slides. We're not planning to go into any depth on any of these. I just wanted to give it as a representation of what's going on construction-wise, both our own as well as the private sector developers. On our website, we have project pages for each of our significant projects, and then there's also a presentation that we update periodically in there if you're interested into finding out more details on any of these projects. The first slide is recently completed projects, and so you can see them laid out here, a variety. At the bottom right-hand corner is a mixed-use project, and then we have quite a few other projects that over the last few years have been completed. And then we have several projects that are currently underway, both in the downtown and throughout the city. And then we have industrial projects as well. And so they're in various phases. From Redwood Tech, has not started yet, whereas you probably see some activity with TechCon, and then Mershot Investments. That's going to be 5 dispersed buildings, and then we have the GSA expansion. So on the housing side, This slide is laid out between approved or pending and then affordable and then market rate. So a lot has changed on the housing landscape. So since the 1970s, we had a voter-approved residential development control system, which really allowed for sort of measured growth over time. A certain number of units were allocated and approved by council based on what the voters approved, but new state legislation changed all of that and said to cities, nope, you can't do that. We're in the middle of a housing crisis, and so we have, our team, has tried to work with legislators, and before these new rules were rolled out to kind of show what Morgan Hill has done. The RDCS really helped us develop in a good way. We were able to build affordable housing, and so now what we're going to see is a lot more projects that we have in the queue. And as a matter of fact, last night our council directed us to go and submit our housing element to the HCD, and so we're going to be doing that, and that kind of lays out how we're going to respond to the number of units that we need to develop over the next cycle, which is basically 8 years. So the next few slides go into some of the different housing projects, and in this case, it's not only housing, but it's office, and this is underway, and this is right by our Community Cultural Center in the old lumberyard. And then we have Jasper, Monterey, townhomes. We have 389 apartments, Butterfield and Jarvis. Then the Crossings, these are 73 affordable units. Rosewood by Brooksfield, so construction could start as early as this year. And then we have Monterey Madrone by Gemcor, 249 affordable units. All right, so now the next several slides are our projects in partnership with other agencies. This is the Hale Avenue extension, so this is a project that's been years in the making. So it is under construction, and so south of Dunn, we anticipate that finishing the end of this year, and then north of Dunn in 2023. Magical Bridge, I mentioned that. Yes, Doug?
What would be really great is if you put up a real-time camera on the Hale construction. You could buy one of these little wireless for a couple $100. It would really be neat. You're always doing it with their parking lot. I think, we could watch off people. I enjoy watching the changes every time I drive by, which is getting harder and harder but just a thought.
Yeah. And we'll have our first roundabout here in Morgan Hill. Yeah. Okay, so I mentioned Magical Bridge. It is completed. Check it out if you haven't. It's really, really nice. Pavement rehab project. Doug mentioned streets closed, but the good thing is these streets are going to be improved. We, of course, hear from our community when they're frustrated when roads are closed, but then we've also heard a lot of thank yous from residents that the roads are being repaired. So we basically have a project each year, and so this slide shows some of the different areas. We have our Madrone Channel Trail, different phases. Phase 1 is already done. Phase 2, we've received grant funding, and then we anticipate Phase 2 to be completed next year. And then we have our West Liliagas Creek Trail, opening later this year. I think that's a repeat. And then we have South County Regional Wastewater Authority expansion. So this has been in the making for many years. I used to work for the city of Gilroy. I started there in 2006, and back then we thought we needed the expansion, but then things changed, estimates changed, and it was paused, and now we've realized that yes, in fact, the plant needs to be expanded, and so that is in the works. We anticipate it's going to be completed next year. And then our flood control project. This is going to be significant for the city and for our homeowners. This is in partnership, of course, with Valley Water, and anticipate this going all the way through 2024. And then just some slides on what's on the horizon. So over the years, we've updated quite a few master plans and studies, and so there's a lot of work now that we're in the midst of going through and completing some of the steps and some of the, in implementing some of the studies. And so, for instance, Economic Blueprint, that was adopted in 2017. On the horizon is looking at the Economic Development Blueprint and updating it. Chris is going to be bringing back the Transportation Master Plan, so that will involve the community and the council, and just several different areas there. And then last night I mentioned we had our strategic work plan. We shared that with the council. This is just a few of the different items. One is recently the council adopted a communications plan, and so we're in the midst of implementing that. A new solid waste management franchise agreement, both for the city of Morgan Hill as well as for Gilroy with Recology. Working on establishing a property-based improvement district. That's our economic development team's working on that. I mentioned our housing element. And then just continuing to advocate with our different regional partners about expanding. 101 is the big one, but there's other areas as well, like high-speed rail. All right. Time for questions, or if there's areas you'd like me or my team to go into more detail on. Students, questions? No? Did you learn a little bit more about what the city does? Awesome. Sobrato, Live Oak, Oakwood, Sobrato. What year are you guys? Seniors, class of 2023. Wow, well, I'm excited for you guys that school is in person. Have a wonderful, wonderful year. Makes a big difference. Yeah. So you guys in the bit of COVID was freshman year, right? Yeah. Freshman, sophomore, yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Perhaps Chris can just touch on campaign signs.
Campaign signs.
So I think Michelle is the one who gives out the information on campaign signs. But what I wanted to remind people, what people don't always remember, is sometimes there's landscaping in the park strip in front of the sidewalk, and you think that's someone's private property. That's actually the right-of-way. So anything that's in the park strip, we go and take down. So anything that goes on the city public property for anyone, local, regional, whatever campaign, we take it and we dump it all in the courtyard, so you can always come get it if you need to pick up your signs, if they're put in the wrong place. But cannot put any signs on any public property, and the one that's confusing is that little park strip area that's between the road and the sidewalk. That is almost always public property, unless you're on a private road.
Thank you. And in the pamphlet, there's actually pictures that kind of might help with some of what Chris is describing. Yes, Rick. Yeah.
I'm on the Chamber of Commerce board, planning on having a candidate forum where we ask questions and have the candidates talk about issues. How detailed?
Yeah, no, that's a good question, and I think what we're going to do is follow up with Dawn, and okay, Michelle's already emailed him. See how responsive our team is. Yeah, and provide some guidance. I mean, generally speaking, you know, Michelle kind of already went into this, but it's fine for them to talk about a variety of issues. You know, we just have concerns when it gets specific. Edith, is there something you want to mention?
I think that to the extent that candidates can speak to their values, I think that that's fine, but I think at the end of the day, what we're seeking, and what I think the law seeks is everyone to have a fair chance when their project goes before the city council. So to that extent, if you can stick to your values and what you're seeking for versus the project itself, so that it has a fair chance when it's before you.
Well,
Yeah, and specifically, like, if it's a project that's already completed, it's completed. It's something that may be coming forward where I believe the issue lies. I am not an attorney, so I will definitely defer to Don, and like I said, I did email him, so I can get some more specifics for you on that. And candidates, just like everybody, can talk about a variety of projects. it's, you know, we're being really reiterative here, but it's the specificity and the detail, and forming an opinion and being very vocal about that ahead of it can be problematic. And so we'll get some information for you all on that.
Questions, comments, requests for more detail? I want to see Ed's notes.
In my experience, candidates often want to have the endorsement from city employees of various types,
Yeah.
police and fire especially, and to reflect that endorsement, they want to take their picture in front of a fire truck or the police car. Is that possible?
No. Yeah, so Ed, good question. So I'll just speak, so for city teammates, I don't go to fundraisers or campaign events for any of the candidates. It's not appropriate. Our employees can do what they want to do in their off time, but we have to be careful and cautious. Now, with that said, Ed has sort of mentioned, like in the police and fire area, the unions, on the other hand, do in some cases endorse specific candidates. That is okay, but in the example, no, we wouldn't want to take those pictures, and we wouldn't want to have that candidate put anything up on our website or mailers or that sort of thing. Doug?
So, it appears that we have a candidate here tonight who I did not see on the public portal for having filed nomination papers.
Which one?
I think I looked on Monday, the closure was the previous Friday. Can you give me some sense of the lag, if any, between what? Like I said, I'd like to follow along.
Yeah, our website is up to date.
What I found is, I don't think reflects reality.
So the website's been up to date since Saturday. Brian came in Friday afternoon, but all of the candidates are listed along with their contact information, their candidate statements. So it's all on our candidates page, as well as measures. So we do have 2 measures coming up on the November election. Measure A, which has to do with distribution centers and those types of buildings, and then Measure B, which is having to do with Monterey Road through downtown. We have received arguments for those. Those are also on our website, and we are in the 10-day review period for anybody that is curious. So, but all of that is up on our website.
Questions? Thoughts? All right. Thank you, Brian. Thank you. So ways to engage, definitely on our social media, get on 411s, viewing during or after the fact our meetings. We have town halls over the next couple months. What else, Michelle, comes to mind?
Farmers market booths.
Ah, yes. Yeah, so Michelle has started a process once a month. Basically, our team goes out to farmers markets, have a variety of topics. So we set up a tent, usually by Coffee Guys.
Coffee Guys and Sidewalk Saturdays is going on over on the corner of 3rd and Depot when it's not.
Yep.
And we typically run March through October, so October will be our last one for the season.
So we're out there, we have specific topics, but we're out there talking with community members on whatever they want to talk about.
Well, with the Taste of Morgan Hill being canceled, there used to be a lot of candidate booths. Can we take them over to the?
I don't think so. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for the question. No, the Sidewalk Saturday is the retail market.
And then farmers market specifically,
They don't allow it.
It's yeah, and I don't know if, yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, well, I'll stick around for a few minutes in case you want to just ask me any questions. Reach out with any questions, concerns. Happy to talk with any of you. Thank you so much for joining us tonight.